Chapter 101 Triple Casting. Linjos was very tired. His face seemed even longer than usual, with dark circles around the eyes caused by worries and lack of sleep. When he heard what had happened, he only sighed, turning to watch at the forest below. I really envy magical beasts. Things are so simple for them, taking only what they need without caring for petty things like gold and grudges. Then he turned back again, looking at Uriel in the eyes. I'm really sorry for what happened to you. Partially is my fault. And what makes me feel even worse is that despite all my brave talk and efforts, you are not the first victim, and likely not the last either. The most basic move to get rid of a headmaster is to make the environment toxic through violence and intimidation. Academy's life is already very hard and demanding. It does not take much to make it unbearable. When that happens, the number of graduates plummets, the academy's reputation rapidly declines, and a new headmaster gets chosen. Usually it happens during the last trimester. The timing of the event suggests someone really wants to get rid of me. I guess they didn't like me taking cheating off the table. You have no idea how many noble slackers have failed right off the bat. He sighed again, taking no pleasure from their misfortune. As for the ballots, I can't. There is none left. Is it because Lockhart and his goons? Did they take them all? Uriel was worried, remembering his father's words. Actually, no. Linjos replied with a smirk. After what happened between Lid and Lady Hestia became the talk of the academy, a lot of first and second year students came for the ballots. The ones I gave you two young ladies were among the last ones. There were just about 20 to begin with, so I already ordered a new batch. The problem is that since their power source is the castle itself, the crafting method is quite complex. It will take some time. Floria swallowed a lump of saliva, regretting not having got one before. You have 3 ballots and only 5 people. Linjos shrugged. You will manage somehow. In the meantime, I will do everything I can to ensure everyone's safety. But remember, each floor is really big, and I have only Professor at my disposal, not an army of watchmen, so be careful. Back in Quilla's room, Uriel, Freya, and Floria felt dejected and stupid. The world, as they knew it, had collapsed under their feet. The peace that they had taken for granted seemed to be about to end. All the dreams and expectations they had cultivated during all those years in the academy seemed so stupid and insignificant compared to the idea of a civil war that could kill everyone they loved. And then there was the feeling of being cast aside. Even if they did it out of love, their families hadn't trusted them enough to tell them the truth. Freya's case was the worst, since she now knew how she was considered nothing more than a tool to an end. Uriel was so shocked that even the earlier aggression's memory was already fading in the background. I can't believe I have been so stupid. Warden and healer are just useless specializations. What my father, my family needs is a warrior, a leader. If only he had been honest with me, I would have chosen wisely. Lid kept silent, letting him vent off his frustration. He knew by experience that when something that big happened, the words of a stranger would sound empty. Uriel needed time to accept the change. I'm sorry, guys. I don't feel like doing anything right now, Floria said. I need some time to think. Most importantly, I need to make sure that my brothers are okay. Despite not having a ballot, she darted out of the room before anyone could offer to escort her. Uriel followed her so fast that he didn't need to hold the door open. He walked in long strides, inwardly hoping for someone to attack him again. He really needed a way to vent up all the pent-up frustration. As for Freya, she felt enraged for her mother's condescending tone, but at the same time she was deeply scared. Too much to remain alone. She had no one to turn for comfort, except the two that still remained in the room. Damn it, this is the story of my life, Lid inwardly cursed. Everything that can go wrong always does, be it on earth or here. Nothing has changed. As soon as I fix a problem and try to get some peace, another one pops up. At this point, these kids are just a burden. They have too much to lose, but I can't afford the luxury of being depressed. I need to gather as much as I can, in case sooner or later I will be forced to leave this country full of idiots. If you need some time alone, I completely understand, he said to the two girls while hiding his clenched fist behind his back. I'll take my leave. What about the dimensional magic practice? Quilla asked. I beg your pardon? Those were the last words Lid expected to hear. I'm sorry for what happened to Uriel. Quilla was sitting on the bed, swinging her legs in a very childish manner, yet her cold eyes were nothing like those of a kid. But honestly, all that happened today just proved what I said on the second day. This academy sucks. Or better, the whole kingdom sucks. All my life, I survived only thanks to my skills, and once I got here, nothing changed. I don't care if this country burns. It has never done anything good for me. But you guys did. You are the only ones that ever cared for me, and I don't want to risk losing you getting involved in this nonsense. If everything goes south, dimensional magic is our best way out of this nightmarish place. That was a feeling it could relate to. That speech bordering treason was music to his ears. At the moment, Quilla was the most important piece on his board. If someone could help him, that was her. After Freya reluctantly agreed, they started practicing the loop spell. According to the book, unlike all the other Tier 4 spells they had learned so far, generating a gate required handling 3 magic pulses at once, one for each element. Being an educational spell, loop required from the student only to properly handle the different energies, while the 2 portal size, distance and duration were determined by hand signs and magic words. After casting the spell for the first time, Lid generated 3 mana pulses on the same magnitude, one made only of earth, one of air, and the last of water magic. Following the instruction, Lid made the first 2 energies merge, forming a yellow wisp of light between his hands. That was the easy part. The small energy core was highly unstable. Hence, the difficulty of the exercise consisted in giving it just enough water magic to quench the excess energy. Lid tried to go slow and steady, resulting in the yellow wisp dissipating under the conflicting forcing, repulsing each other. Damn it, it's hard. Before he could start doubting about the moral integrity of Professor Rod's ancestors, he noticed that Quilla was looking at him with admiration. How did you do that? What are you talking about? That light! Sure, there was supposed to be 2 small black dots instead of a single yellow one, but it's more than I achieved this whole afternoon. Lid furrowed his brow in disbelief. That was just the first step, and he didn't even manage to do it right. Do you have the same problem? Yes, Freya nodded. Do you know how to triple cast right? After receiving another affirmative response. Then show me. If what they said was true, there was no possible explanation for their utter failure. He needed to check. Lid made them perform in turns a single chore magic spell. Then they had to keep the first one active while generating a second and a third copy of the same spell. The result was mediocre. With each copy, the size and intensity of magical energy dwindled. That's not triple casting at all. It should be like this. With a wave of his hand, Lee generated 3 identical small flames, making them contract and expand at unison. Soon it was clear that without solid foundation, they couldn't even attempt the first step of loop. Lee was really conflicted about teaching them how to multicast. It had never been part of his plan. But during the last Master Hero class, he had understood why his mana sensibility was so low. It was because he had never practiced it. Thanks to true magic and invigoration, he didn't need to feel the energy flow because he could see it. His companions, instead, could only rely on their instinct, and that resulted in honing their magical senses over time. Until that moment, he had been like a sighted man leading the blind. But if his fears were correct, to learn dimensional magic, Lid had to develop his mana sensibility. Having no idea how to do it, he would need their help. First of all, let's set aside loop for the time being. He started explaining. Multicasting will require for you to concentrate only on first magic. The 3 key points are focus, willpower, and visualization. It's like picturing in your head different persons at the same time. He made appear 3 different flames. If you focus too much on a single subject, the others will blur. One remains stable, while the other 2 started to change randomly in shape and size. Forget normal magic, where you can do everything in one step at a time, like reading a list. You must be able to split your focus evenly, and that requires a strong willpower and a clear visualization of the effects you want to create. Contrary to his wishes, they spent the rest of the afternoon practicing first magic, while Lid could only assist, guide them at the best of his abilities. Chapter 102 Progress. Reading the reports about the internal struggle that was taking place in the Griffon Kingdom, the Mage Empress had the impression of reading a history book. Centuries ago, the Gorgon Empire had faced a similar crisis. After Magus Lorcra Silverwing had divulged her magical inheritance to the whole world, the mystical arts had started to improve by leaps and bounds. The knowledge she had released had interrupted the long stagnation period magical research had suffered. As any chance, though, along with new solutions brought new problems. Until that moment, magic had been limited to Tier 3 spells, and that had allowed the rich and powerful families to hold a monopoly. The inheritance contained the basis for many Tier 4 spells, and planted the seed of what would have been known as specializations. Realizing the countless military applications, the upper echelons of every country were put in a bind. Keeping the use of magic limited only to the science of their families would make achieving any progress slow and difficult. Magic had always been a rare talent, and now there was so much to study
but so few mages. On the other hand, allowing commoners to study magic would have altered the balance of power. Once they had access to Tier 4 spells, who could guarantee that the new mages would not be the hand that fed them? While the Griffon Kingdom opted for the creation of the Mage Association, granting even to the commoners status and riches according to their contributions, the Gorgon Empire had dismissed such idea as suicidal. They preferred focusing on forge mastering, investing all their resources in the development of slave colors. Thanks to these magical items, commoners could be conscripted safely and their attitude for magic checked. Every mage candidate was forced into submission, incapable of disobeying orders of his master. The slavery of commoner mages lasted decades, until an old and crafty forge master managed to find a loophole. Her master had asked her to create an artifact capable of temporarily disable magical items, to use it on the battlefield and cripple the enemy's resources when they needed them the most. But he never said anything about avoiding to affect the colors. When, per his request, she showed him how it worked, the colors of all mages in the household went off, and the revolt began. By combining the use of the artifact to free new mages and applying the colors to their tormentors, they slowly exterminated or enslaved all the noble households. The artifact was a secret, so all she had to do was to use her now obedient master as a Trojan horse, letting the rebellion spread silently until it was too late. After killing the nobles, the mages took the power, destroying every trace or mention of how to realize the colors. Even researching the matter had become a capital offense. From being a monarchy, the empire became an oligarchy, only based on meritocracy. Titles would not be inherited. Every position would be occupied by those that were deemed worthy. Most mages had no interest in fancy mansions or life-size gold statues of themselves. They would invest most of their income for their families and research. The first law enacted by the first mage emperor and his magic council had been the freedom to study magic. No matter the social status, and introducing chore magic in the corset of disciplines children had to study. The system wasn't perfect. A good mage could be an incompetent or cruel ruler, not to mention that at his or her death, the replacement of even a local governor could take quite some time, leaving the territory open to corruptions or attacks from the outside. Also, because most of the resources were invested in constantly researching and developing new forms of magic, their human army was considered to be weakest among the 3 neighboring countries. Nonetheless, the Gorgon Empire was now the most advanced country in the field of magical research. The capital was a floating fortified city, whose white walls shone in the daylight like a beacon for the travelers. The guard towers extended above and below the wall, with giant magic crystals at each extremity, fueling the mystic rune circles visible at the naked eye. Each tower was capable of attack or defense, according to the circumstances, making the city virtually unconquerable. "Idiots," said the magic empress. "They have only delayed the inevitable, putting a different kind of color to their mages. No matter how long, a leash is always a leash. Order the armies at our borders to be ready for the attack. It's only a matter of time before someone does something stupid and things escalate. We must be the quickest to reap the benefits from their folly. The next morning, Lid had no real hope of succeeding at the second lesson of dimensional magic. After teaching triple casting to the girls, he had spent the whole night practicing, but with little progress. When they reached the training hall, Professor Rod was already there, awaiting. The room was 30 meters long, 20 meters wide, and completely empty. Small circles have been drawn on the floor, indicating where the students had to position themselves. The ground and the walls show no trace of crevices. The room appeared to have been carved out of a single massive stone, rather than assembled from smaller ones. "Begin," he said, even before the last gong announced the start of the lesson. Normally, Lid would have faked incompetence for a while before getting serious, but this time he had no reason to pretend. Professor Rod walked slowly among them, taking a mental note of those who were actually capable of triple casting. The small yellow wisp was an indicator of that. Lid, Liam, and only a few others were capable of completing the first step. Many students, after several failures, took out their books, trying to understand what they were doing wrong. Thanks to all his training, Lid had managed to understand the timing necessary to stabilize the wisp with water magic, allowing it to add more energy to the core, turning it into 2 small black spheres. The problem was that he had no idea how to continue. After hundreds of attempts, he was still incapable of making them enlarge and stretch. The even horizon form was the last step before properly completing the exercise. Second step already. Not bad for a commoner. Ruth clicked his tongue, noticing the lack of progress from the rest of the class. After 1 hour had passed and he had made no further progress, Lid decided to ask for help. "Professor, I have a question." "What a coincidence. So do I. Tell me, did you read my book yesterday?" "Yes." "Did you understand what is written?" "Yes." Lid understood where he was going. Something similar had happened to him during a college lesson. "Then for your own good, you do not have a question. Go back to your place." More time passed, and since he was still stuck at the second step, he stopped for a moment to check how others were doing. Uriel and Floria had yet to produce the yellow wisp, while Freya seemed to be able to generate it regularly. Seems she finally grasped triple casting. Let's see how Quilla is doing. After looking around a bit, Lid was able to find her. Much to his surprise, he saw her generate the wisp, turn it into the 2 black dots, and even managed to start giving them the funnel shape. Professor Rod was incapable of deciding if to be more amazed of her or furious with the class. Several students tried to ask him for pointers and advice, but he gave everyone the same reply he gave to Lid. When the lesson ended, no one had made any further progress. More than half the class had not been capable to achieve even the first step of the loop spell. "Before you go, I want you to know that I'm disgusted by your attitude," Ruth said. "I don't believe in equality. We are all born different for a reason. I don't believe in solidarity either. An academy isn't a charity. It's a battlefield where every mage fights for himself. Yet when yesterday I told you that triple casting was essential, why no one had the guts to tell me so many of you are not at that level? Did you hope that somehow I would go blind and not notice? Well, all of you have managed to accomplish today is to waste my time and patience. From tomorrow onwards is better for those who are incapable to reach the minimum requirements to not attend my class. Dismissed. Once outside, Lit eagerly ran to Quilla, hoping she could help overcome his bottleneck. How did you reach the third step? I managed to understand how to stabilize the first energy core, feeding enough mana to grow and split. But after that, it goes nuts. Either I use water magic to stabilize one of the gates or the other. I cannot do both. Or better, I tried even resorting to quadra casting to use 2 water magic pulses at once, but nothing worked. You don't need quadra magic. It's actually really simple, Quilla replied. The 2 gates are so deeply connected that they act as one. You mustn't treat them as separate entities, but as a whole. It's like healing someone with a dislocated shoulder and broken fingers. 2 points in space, but only 1 arm. You must simply make the light magic circulate through the whole damaged limb to take care of both issues. Easy peasy. Lit casted loop once again, doing as instructed. Quilla is right. I can make water circulate from one end to another. Eureka! Yet instead of stretching, the 2 black dots disintegrated with a popping sound. No, it's not, he replied with a sigh. Chapter 103 Red Lotus. Thanks to her outstanding talent, at the 3rd lesson, Quilla was able to execute loop. Even though he practiced night and day, Lit needed until the 4th one, ending up as the 10th to complete the exercise. At first, he had been frustrated by his inability to keep up with Quilla. Despite her private lesson on dimensional magic and the long hours of hard work at night, he was always up to 2 or 3 steps behind. But then he understood that being 10th on over 200 students wasn't such a bad result, especially since most of them had a way to go. Not to mention that his mana sensitivity was slowly but steadily improving. It was an odd experience, feeling the energy flow with the mind rather than his eyes. Dimensional spells seems to have hot and cold spots at the same time. The secret to stabilize a gate was to infuse water magic only on the hot spots. Using too much of it or affecting an already cold spot would cause the spatial distortion to collapse. When the weekend arrived, Lit needed to vent out his frustration. So he proposed a trip to the forest to forget about their worries and fetch some ingredients for extra points or money. Since he got admitted to the academy, Lit had stopped working, and in case he needed to get his family out of the kingdom and rebuild their lives from scratch, it would require a lot of gold. But aside from Quilla, the rest of the group had his hands full between understanding triple cast and managing to complete the loop spell. I would love to come with you. Quilla seemed really dejected. But I am useless in battle, and you are a great healer yourself. Without someone protecting me, I would only be a burden. The best thing I can do is help them with the dimensional magic and practice for the next exercise. Hearing those words, Lit's mood went from good to great. Work hard for me too. If you find any trick or shortcut to it, I'll make it worthwhile. After that, he only had to go to the portal connecting to the ground floor and the academy's entrance. Before going out, he needed to get the clearance. The clerk, stationing at the front desk, beside the giant wood and the metal double doors, looked at him like he was a madman. "Are you really going out alone? Where is your team?" If that was a joke, he didn't find it funny. "No team, just me. Can I go now, please?" Lit snorted. "Do you realize that once out there you are on your own? Outside the exam period, you are not bound to encounter friendly magical beasts. You are just a fourth-year student. You could meet fifth-years too. Not to mention poachers, adventurers, monsters, and God knows who. The academy is in the forest, but doesn't own it. It's full of resources and everyone wants a piece of it." "No problem, I got this." Lit took out his ballot, receiving a contemptuous look in return. "That doesn't work outside the academy. The only thing you can use is this." The clerk showed him a marble-sized pendant. "In case of trouble, just put its center to generate a distress beacon." "But it's not a ballot at all. First, the rescue personnel will have to find you. Only then a warp step can be opened. It can take minutes." Lit smiled at the good news. "Fine by me, is that all?" Grumbling about youngster idiocy, the clerk compiled the form and had Lit sign it. "The castle gates are open 24/7. I recommend you not going too deep and returning for the night. That's the moment when the big predators hunt. If you still want to go, that makes 200 points. 200 points? I need to pay to risk my life? It's the only way to make you kids realize how important this decision is. Normally, the cost would be split among the team members. But since you are alone..." Lit exchanged the points for the pendant, without a second thought. Once he was behind the tree's cover, he put the uniform and everything related to the academy in the pocket dimension, wearing his old hunter suit instead. With everything that was happening, it was much safer appearing as a stranger rather than a student. The clerk's words were the best news he had received over a week. Being alone, as long no one was able to recognize him or live to tell the tale, he had no reason any more to hide his real power. Lit had often thought how to conceal his face, and had come with a solution during the 4 days break. A mask would have been cool, but would limit his line of sight. Hoods were good only if they abode to some magical principle, preventing them to come off while moving at high speed. Not to mention the poor lateral vision. His old self, that had always loved heroes, was really disappointed. But he had long learned that practicality was much more important than looking cool. So he had his mother realize a ski mask, leaving only his eyes exposed. Once his identity was safe, he started flying among the trees, using live vision to check the perimeter for enemies and prey alike. Being unshackled after so many months gave him an adrenaline rush. Lit started moving faster and faster, alternating short flights with high-speed movements, thanks to fusion magic. "Solus, let me know if you sense anything with a huge mana signature. This isn't Tron Woods anymore. We aren't hunting for food, but for magical herbs and mana crystals. Yeah, too bad that the library books can be brought outside. The forest, herbarium, and bestiary would save us so much time. Who would have thought that dimensional magic was that hard? We hadn't had a minute available to copy them. We'll do with what we remember. Lit kept going deeper into the forest, jumping from tree to tree with an agility and speed that would have put a ninja to shame. The killing intent he emitted kept normal animals and insects at bay, allowing him to move unimpeded. After a few hours scouring the forest, his patience was growing thin. Abundant resources? Huh! I haven't even spotted a single magical beast so far. Where the heck is all the good stuff? Down there, look at the bottom of the tree at your left. Following Solo's directions, the only thing that Lit noticed was a big bush in the middle of a clearing. Switching to live vision, the scenery changed entirely, though. The world turned into shades of gray, while the bush was the only thing of a deep green. On the center of it, there was something that shined a pure light, the strongest magical force he had ever saw. He floated down slowly, checking to have no competition for the treasure. Odd! There's nothing alive around here except for trees and plants. Maybe that thing is sucking all natural resources, Lit thought. By coming closer, he was able to catch a glimpse of his prize. It resembled a red lotus flower, and it was floating in midair above the thick bush, emitting a sweet fragrance, like a flower bed after the spring rain. His first instinct was to extend his arm and take it, but his paranoia took the wheel, forcing him to stop. Wait a minute. I get that I'm pretty deep in the forest, but this thing stands out a lot. Why no one has found it before? And how the heck does that thing float? More importantly, why there is no insect buzzing around? And since when plants appear colored with live vision? Because their vitality was equally dispersed from the roots to the leaves, usually, live vision perceived small plants as almost lifeless, while big trees had barely a tinge of red. When he had devised that spell, Lit had planned on using it against humans and animals alike, making it more sensitive to things that had an active circulatory system. No matter if it was mana or blood, live vision sensibility was aimed to things that moved quickly. The bush appeared of a blue color, something that he had never forgot about. With a wave of his hand, the space around the lotus was invaded by flames. An inhumane screech filled the air. The bush suddenly moved, revealing countless green appendages hidden underground that now it was using to smother the flames. Each of that thing was as thick as Slit's arm, moving and writhing so fast that he couldn't get it if they were vines or tentacles. The red lotus swayed and moved along with the bush thing, revealing to be connected to it through a small tendril. The thing didn't seem to have a definite shape. It was a living mass of vines that was whipping the air, trying to capture its prey. The green appendages moved quick as snakes, grabbing Litz by the arms, chest and legs, only to discover that he had already moved, leaving behind only an after-image. Whatever you are, I'm not your game material. Back off. With another wave of his hand, he released countless wind blades, cutting all the incoming appendages like a hot knife through butter. The thing screeched again, and its body, no more lying down, revealed to be at least 3 meters high, filling the air with snapping vines. Chapter 104 Red Lotus Part 2. The wounded vines spurted a purple liquid. Lid kept his distance, dodging the unknown substance with minimal movements to not lose his advantage. There was no sizzles when it hit the ground, so it's not an acid. Could it be venomous? He thought. Lid extended his arms, releasing 2 jets of fire from the palms. The appendages reacted quickly, enveloping the creature's towering mass and turning to a gray color. The flames had no effect, leaving only a black mark like they had hit stone. Lid had never met the plant monster before, so he was particularly cautious. He kept several spells ready to use, waving a new one as soon as another one was consumed. Whatever this is, it doesn't seem to be able to move from that spot. Running away shouldn't be an issue. The problem is deciding if it's worth my time or not. With my luck, if I kill it, the flower will wither instantly. Sending an invisible tendril of pure mana, Lid used spirit magic to tug hard at the red lotus, aiming it to grab it and run. He had no desire to fight useless battles. The flower's stem bent diagonally under the strain, but refused to move. The plant monster screeched again, this time with fury. "Look out!" Solus yelled. "It's coming from below!" Lid scoffed at the creature's naivety, activating again his flight spell. But when he tried to lift from the ground, he discovered that the grass was tightly binding his feet, preventing him from moving. Observing it with live vision once more, he discovered that the patch of grass below him had become blue-colored too. Somehow, it was part of the monster body. Before he could recover, several vines erupted from the ground, with their great stone-like extremities trying to stab its vital organs. Knowing an attack was incoming, Lid used earth fusion to the extreme, hardening his body and using the arms to take off the brunt of the impact. Despite his iron bracers and magical protections, the vines managed to pierce his skin, digging right into his flesh. Lid screamed in pain while the tendrils kept digging in his own flesh without missing a single drop of blood. Without allowing himself to panic, Lid used his frozen heart spell, turning everything around him into ice. Be them gray or green, fire hadn't done much damage to the tendrils, so he had changed element. Having become brittle from the sudden cold, Lid managed to break free from both the vines and the grass, flying backwards trying to understand what was happening. His wounds were covered in a purple sticky goo. He could feel his arm going numb. A tingling sensation was invading his body. After what had happened with the clackers, he always kept a detoxifying spell ready, using it together with a healing spell to close the wounds. What the heck is happening? How does it control the grass? It makes no sense. Lit and Solo's minds were spinning at top gear, trying to make heads or tails of the creature. While he was still in a daze, both the grass and the tendrils thawed in the blink of an eye. Like fire, water magic seemed to have little effect. Without stopping, Lit activated live vision again, seeing a blue streak moving like a flash through the ground vegetation, following him closely. Solus, what color is its core? I don't like this at all. That thing has no core at all. It's just a random mass of energy. I have never seen anything like that. I don't remember reading about something that even resembles this thing. It's too monstrous to forget. A cold shiver ran down Lit's spine. His first plant monster didn't seem to follow any of the magical rules he had learned so far. No core, resistant to ice and fire, and capable of controlling the vegetation. The only words that could describe his feelings were fear of unknown. He had spent years learning magic, looking out for stronger cores, but now everything he knew had just went down the gutter. Even flying backwards in a zigzag pattern was useless. The blue streak kept tailing him. Lit couldn't risk running into a tree, so he moved up and away from the ground. From a higher ground, he could see that there were actually more than one streak moving. While the mass of vines the red lotus was attached to had turned gray, according to live vision, only the flower remained colored. Lit's head was spinning in shock. So now the main body is dead, and the ground seems a disco ball? But that would mean that more than its mana, somehow, live vision actually perceives its consciousness? That thing must be capable of switching bodies at will. That would explain how it could control even the grass, and why there is no wildlife at all. Solus cut him short. The trees! Look out for the trees! Despite their mingling was instantaneous, when Solus warned him the attack was already inbound. The bark of the nearest beech had peeled off, revealing to be a mass of vines wrapped around the real tree trunk, and now were darting toward the unsuspecting Lit. Before he could turn around, they wrapped around his arms and legs, slamming him against the trunk before starting to eat him alive. Excruciating pain assaulted Lit from all sides, yet he managed to remain conscious with the sheer willpower. His hands grabbed the nearest vines while he activated one of the spells he had created after learning Tier 4 magic. Vampiric Touch, a twisted version of the healing spells Vlastor had taught him. While normally such a spell would enhance the recovery of a patient and give him energy to survive the procedure, Vampiric Touch would heal Lit instead, draining the victim of its energy in the process. When the plant monster realized what was happening, it was too late. The tendrils had gone too deep, and by clenching his muscles with the help of earth fusion, Lit prevented them to escape. The dark energy devoured the tendrils, sucking them dry while restoring Lit's flesh and vitality. The vines withered at a speed visible to the naked eye, until the fake bark collapsed on the ground, revealing that the beech underneath was long dead. The creature's consciousness managed to run away, going back to the main body. Lit used invigoration to recuperate. Vampiric Touch couldn't heal so many deep wounds with the measly meal as a foundation. After that, he shot several plague arrows against the other trees. As soon as they hit, the fake bark fell off. Lit understood that the luscious forest around the creature's main body was actually a plant graveyard. 2 more plague arrows hit the ground. Even the grass withered and screeched before dying. I don't know what the heck you are. You are too dangerous to live. Everything has become part of your body, and I have no desire to find out how far your control can go. Keeping live vision always active put a great strain on his body, but Lit understood that it was his only chance of making it alive. Before going back to the ground, he released from his body a dark aura, the same he had used against the wither in the Tron Woods. The darkness energy attacked indiscriminately everything in a 10-meter radius from him. The grass withered, the vines hidden underground died, leaving only bare earth around him. Only then he started waving his strongest darkness spell, Death Zone. A black, thick mist appeared in front of him, resembling a small storm cloud, only 20 meters long and wide, around 3 meters high. After conjuring it, Lit needed only a thought to send it towards the creature's main body. Like all darkness spells, Death Zone moved slowly, but its destructive power was unmatched. It was the perfect weapon against an enemy that could not run away. The cloud destroyed everything in its path, while the creature's screeching turned from angry to scared, and from scared to terrified. It tried to attack Lit to stop the incoming attack, but between live vision and the dark aura, none of them came even close. He could see every one of them in slow motion, not only because of his heightened senses, but also because dark magic would weaken and corrupt everything that entered its range. When Death Zone reached its target, the creature recalled to itself all the dispersed consciousness in a last desperate attempt for survival. Yet both Lit and his spell were unrelenting, foiling all its attack the former, ignoring them the latter. Whatever mass the monster managed to form, it would only become nourishment for the dark energy. "Please stop," the creature spoke. Lit remained unfazed, keeping his guard and letting Death Zone do its job. "I'm just like you." "No, you are not. You are about to die." The main body was shrinking without the necessary energy to sustain that huge form. It was reverting to a much smaller plant, an ivy. "Lit, now all the energy is finally in one place. I can finally see its core. It's black." Lit completed the thought for her. "It's another abomination. I understand it when I saw how every life form was dead. This one seems to have managed to stabilize itself. I just want it to live. Lit didn't let it continue, shooting plague arrows like a machine gun. "Two things I learned from horror movies," he explained to Solus. "First, never give a damn about the monster backstory. No matter how sobbing, it would not prevent it to eat you as soon as you turn your back to it. Second, the moment it's down, kill it until he is really, really dead." With the last roaring wail, the plant abomination died. Suddenly, the whole space around it turned into a wasteland. The grass turned into ash. The fake bark decayed, leaving only dead trees behind. Everything in over a 50-meter radius was identical to where he had fought the wither in the Tron Woods, with only one exception. The red lotus lied on the ground, shining bright like nothing had happened. Chapter 105. Unwanted Guests. "Do you see that, Mr. Negative? The flower didn't wither at all," Solus remarked cheerfully. "You are right. It can still blow up in our faces. Yay!" Lit replied, mimicking her tone. Being too paranoid to touch the red lotus with his bare hands, he lifted it with spirit magic before unsuccessfully attempting to store it in the pocket dimension. What the heck? Examining it up close with live vision, Lit could notice that along a massive mana flow, the red lotus also had a tiny speck of life force. Neither him or Solus had any idea how it could have survived after such long exposure to an abomination. This is great. We can hide it, only carrying it around in a normal pouch, with the risk of being destroyed or even worse, discovered when we go back. If this flower is some kind of priceless treasure, it could cause us a lot of troubles. Lit sighed. The idea of being forced to drop his first loot was quite depressing. Let me guess. We are above a mana vein, right? Exactly, Solus replied. My hypothesis is abomination managed to stabilize itself thanks to the combined effect of the abundant world energy and that odd flower. Agreed. The only questions that remain are the following. Did it kill everything because it needed to feed, or was just a way to control the surrounding environment? And last but not at least, do plant monsters really exist? Only the abomination could answer the first question, and none of us would believe its word anyway. Solus' mind shrugged. As for the second one, my guess is yes. Plants are living beings too. Seeing how much mana has that small flower, I don't see why they shouldn't be able to evolve too. As long this thing doesn't turn to be an abomination, baby, and eats my face, that's fine by me, he replied, keeping the red lotus floating and away from him. Lit was tempted to make Solus turn to his proto-tower form. Thanks to invigoration, his body was in top shape, but he felt mentally tired. Life and death struggles were more than just about stamina. Managing so many spells at once, keeping his cool while constantly fighting the fear of death, made a single real fight 100 times more vexing than cramming all night long. But he didn't know how much time he had left until someone from the academy noticed the bald spot in the forest and sent a scouting team. Lit placed his free hand on the ground, using earth magic to search for the remains of the abomination's victims. A few meters below, he found a boneyard where numerous skeletons were packed together. Lit took only those belonging to magical beasts, ignoring human and animal remains. According to Professor Wayne Meyer, they can be used to forge weapons and armors of superior durability that can also be infused with enchantment much stronger than normal. With all this stuff, I could equip a battalion. How the heck does one forge something out of bones? It makes no sense, Solus objected. I get that they can be hard, but they should always be carbon-based. Beats me? Lit shrugged. Cut me some slack. I'm still in the first year of the specialization. After storing everything in the pocket dimension, his eyes fell on his battered equipment. The hunting suit was riddled with holes as big as a dam, while his metal bracers were damaged to the point of being useless. Luckily, he had a spare suit. Sadly, it was also the last one. After quickly changing clothes, Lit flew away several kilometers before stopping to decide what to do with the red lotus. Couldn't put it in the storage space, nor could bring it on himself, for two good reasons. The first was that he didn't trust something alive to be so close to his vital organs. The second was that even if it really was harmless, the red lotus wouldn't survive in case he had to release again the dark aura or any kind of magic from himself. No matter how precious it could be, nothing was more important than his own life. As it was, the red lotus was an even worse burden than any companion he ever had. The only landmark he knew was the academy, so he decided to bury it near the entrance. hoping that at his return he would have devised a way to snuggle it inside unnoticed. Yet the plan had a huge flaw. Putting a flower near fertile earth was potentially a recipe for disaster. But if the abomination was still alive and ready to respawn as soon as it had enough nutrients, Lid waved all the darkness spell he can use at once, before letting the red lotus enter the small hole he had dug. Even before the red lotus could touch the ground, it started to grow roots that had plunged down, while the earth itself moved upwards, oddly reminding it the creation of Adam by Michelangelo. As soon as they touched, the roots became thicker, quickly turning into vines that wrapped around the lotus, assembling what seemed a humanoid body. Lid activated the spells, conjuring enough dark energy to turn the whole patch of land into a wasteland, yet didn't fire them. The abomination never had a humanoid body. Also, instead of dying, the near vegetation thrived. Countless flower buds blossomed at once. Yellow leaves turned green once again. Lid strengthened the spell and waved new ones, uncaring of the beauty around him. When the thing stopped growing, Lid found himself looking at the most gorgeous woman he had ever seen. Her big red eyes sparkling in the morning light like masterfully cut rubies. Everything in her visage was perfect, from the delicate feature to her full lip. She had thick, unkempt hair, red like maple leaves during autumn, that gave her a wild and unrestrained allure. Also, the fact that she was stark naked, leaving nothing to the imagination about her soft and full curves, didn't hurt. The only thing that betrayed her non-human nature was the light green skin. Just give me one good reason. Lid's fist had now become black due to the massive amount of dark energy they barely contained. The air around her was so full of deadly magic that the creature in her debilitated state could barely breathe. "I'm a dryad," she said like it explained it all, with a voice as clear as a mountain spring. "I don't care." Lid made the dark energy move forward, not leaving her a way out. "I am one of the protectors of this forest. The monster you have killed stole and corrupted my powers to prolong his existence." She was starting to get scared. That wasn't the usual reaction she usually evoked in human males. "Still not the reason. I can reward you." She bit her lower lip, playing her last card. "And in what pocket exactly would you keep something of value in your birthday suit?" The dark mass only needed one last push to obliterate her. "In the Great Mother's name, what kind of man treats this way a maiden he just saved?" Her savior seemed impossible to please and completely immune to her charm. Unfortunately for the Triad, Lidcore had stabilized enough to outgrow even his crush. In that moment, his heart was cold as ice. One that doesn't think with the head below and doesn't trust someone he just met only because she has a pretty face. "Now give me one good reason. I won't ask twice." "Because we can help you," said a third voice. Another dryad was slowly emerging from a nearby oak tree, her hands high in sign of surrender. Before dropping the red lotus, Lid had activated live vision in case another body-swapping creature appeared from the flower. Hence, he didn't miss the second dryad arrival, allowing him to target her with the spells stored in his hands. The new dryad had wheat blonde straight hair, wearing what seemed a light cotton white dress, leaving only her delicate shoulders and arm exposed. Her figure was slender than other dryads, but not less attractive. "If anything happens to me, the redhead goes winter," Lit's will was the only thing blocking the barrage of dark energy like a dead man's switch. The blonde dryad took several natural treasures out of the tree. Some Lit had seen in the books, others were completely new. But every single one of them, no matter it fruit, flower, or root, was brimming with magical energy. Seeing that he was still not moving, the blonde dryad brought her left hand to her chest. A small yellow lotus came out, and through light vision he could see that she has just lost a huge part of her magical power. "This is part of my heart." She handed it to him. "As long as you have it, my life is in your hands." "It's true," Solus confirmed. "There is a clear connection between them. It's like she handed you her manacore." Lit captured the yellow lotus with spirit magic, sending his will through it. Obeying his silent order, the blonde dryad kneeled. The feeling he got was empowering and repulsive at the same time. Having that degree of control over another sentient being was plainly wrong. "How can you help me?" He felt only truth in her words. "We can find a way to mend your soul." Chapter 106. Enlightenment. "My soul, what do you know about it?" Lit was startled by the proposal. He had never been a spiritual person, but after reincarnating twice and his meeting with the Scorpicore, not having doubts about it would be idiotic. Guardians are different from monsters or magical beasts. We do not evolve for the sake of power. We also gain a greater affinity with the Great Mother. She waved at her surroundings. "We dryads in particular are deeply linked to all forms of life on a spiritual level. I can tell at a glance that yours is damaged. I have no way to know how it happened or how that changed your life." "I think I have a clear idea about it," Lit thought. "But maybe, just maybe, I can offer you a solution, or at least point you in the right direction." "How exactly?" "Have you ever had a déjà vu, or the feeling to be in the right place at the right time? That happens when your soul manages to guide you to an important crossroad in your life. We can show you where and when a keystone event will take place, but the spell requires at least 2 dryads." "At least? How many of you live in this forest?" Lit's paranoia kicked in, so he started to search his surroundings for hidden enemies, finding none. "Just the 2 of us," she sighed. "I wouldn't have left my territory if my sister hadn't been in mortal peril, nor would I have handed my heart to you if I had another choice." "Sister?" That word lit a hint of compassion in Lit's heart. She had taken an enormous risk to protect her family, something he deeply respected. Despite she couldn't even move without his permission, her eyes were filled with pride and defiance. After pondering about his options, Lit dispersed all the dark energies. He already had another hostage. Also, he had no use for them since the beginning. If smuggling a glowing flower was hard, then how was he supposed to explain 2 dryads following him everywhere? The natural treasures were enough to compensate for all his troubles. Without the dark energy sapping her powers, the red dryad managed to dress herself with a wave of her hand, conjuring a satin red and gold morning dress complementing her eyes. The longer she was in contact with the earth, the stronger she became. Lit stored away the natural treasures without letting the dryads get out of his sight. Since the second dryad had appeared, Lit felt a tingling, annoying sensation inside his heart, something that resembled guilt. He always acted unscrupulous, killing without distinction or remorse, but he was secretly proud of never harming someone without a reason. Lit knew that the moment he started killing simply because he could, he would have lost his last shred of humanity. Following his leave expecting the worst way of life, this time had almost killed an innocent, forcing another into slavery. Even for him, that was a new low. Feeling bewildered, he sought the advice of his moral compass. "Do you think I got overboard this time?" "Let me see." Solus pondered. "You got almost killed by a tentacle monster, and when another appeared, you took precaution. That was the right thing to do. But when you determined it was not an abomination, there was no reason to be so cruel. Magical creatures are just like humans. Some are good, others are bad. Yet you groundlessly tagged her as a threat. We are lucky you are masked. Otherwise, the next time we meet, I would expect her to attack us on sight." He silently agreed with her. "Do what you have to." Lit stepped back, allowing them to get closer to each other. The two dryads joined their hands, and instantly their eyes were filled with a white light, while a pool of water formed in the space formed by their arms, filling it to the brim. The light descended in the water, forming a white sphere that spun on itself, turning the water in a whirlpool and making it resemble a 3D projection of a galaxy. A small black wisp came out of Lit's body, making him suddenly feel light, like part of his emotional burden had finally been relieved. The wisp entered the vortex, turning it into a deep orange twilight color. At that point, the dryads released their hands, letting the dying galaxy go. It kept spinning on itself for a while before moving towards Lit, merging with his body and forcing him to relive all his 3 lives. Pain invaded his body while his mind was set on fire. Old injuries and bruises appeared and disappeared in a split of a second, while the memories of his first life flooded his brain. He fell on his knees, clawing the ground so hard to break his nail. The pain, the anger, the grieving despair, the revenge, and finally the peace. Then it was his second life's turn, with its madness, the loneliness, and the hunger. At the memory of his second death, a gaping wound opened on his chest. Lit tried to spit a mouthful of blood, but only saliva came out. The wound already disappeared, leaving only the pain before the relief of death. Then it came his third life, and it wasn't at all like he remembered it. There was pain, hunger, but a lot of light and joy. He was forced to realize all the love and affection that the people had showered, even when he had still treated them like tools, manipulating their actions and feelings. Starting with his father, then Celia, Nana, Lark, and finally his friends at the academy. When the images in his head caught up with the present, they kept moving forwards, showing him a place he had never seen before, where he was supposed to be at all costs. Chapter 107 Enlightenment Part 2. The vision disappeared and Lit managed to stand up again. While healing his damaged fingers, he discovered that tears were still streaming from his eyes. He hadn't cried in years, and the feeling linked to the act was bittersweet. There were mostly tears of pain, but at the end of the vision, they had turned to joy from his third life. When he saw the dryad standing a few meters from him, Lit finally remembered where he was. Is it supposed to hurt so much? In another moment, rage and doubt would have filled his voice, but he was still shaken from the experience. He was questioning all of his life choices, including what to do next. No, it's not. The blonde dryad was genuinely worried. It was meant to show you the path, to help you understand the future. It shouldn't have been so painful. Because Lit had her heart, she had felt an echo of his anguish. Humans are the real monsters. How could a kid endure so much pain? She thought. Somehow, Lit knew instinctively that in what direction he needed to go. A feeling of uneasiness was growing inside him with every second, like when he received the phone call from the hospital the day Carl died. It wasn't too late, but the clock was ticking. He had to get there as fast as he could, yet that development was too odd to be true. So he needed answers before taking any rash decision. Are you sure this will help me with my soul? As the memory were fading, Lit was returning to his old self. As I said before, no, but it's likely. Any sole priority should be the desire to be mended, to be whole again. The blonde dryad said while shaking her head. What else could it be? Lit had never grown fond of riddles. It could mean meeting the love of your life, the person that will become your best friend. She shrugged. The only thing that I know for certain is that you will find someone or something related to what your soul craves the most. I'll be honest, all this talk about souls and destiny sounds fake like a flying pig, but a deal is a deal. Lit gave back the yellow lotus to the dryad before darting away faster than a bullet. As soon they were alone, the blonde dryad demeanor changed like heaven and earth had switched places, looking at her sister with eyes full of annoyance. First, you let a newborn abomination best you in combat and use you to leech the world's energy, turning your turf into a dump. Then, you need my help to handle a human child. You've sunk low, dear Lita, she said with a sneer. That bastard took me by surprise, Lita pouted. Don't act so strong. You and I know that in my place you wouldn't have fared any better. As for the human, that's no child, it's a monster. He didn't bat an eye after seeing me naked. Thanks the gods, it's not an academy student. I would die of embarrassment if he ever met again. What about you? You yield without even attempting to fight, to the point of giving your heart to him. That was beyond stupid, Derissa. What if he declared to keep you as a slave? What if he demanded me to hand mine too before freeing me? How could you take the risk of turning us both into whores? Her voice was full of contempt, looking down on her sister. Because I asked her to do so. Scarlet appeared from thin air, towering over the nagging dryad. The reason why I let that abomination live is to teach you that being confident in one thing is one thing, being conceited is another. You can't expect me to cover for all your mistakes, Lita. Do your job properly, or I will find someone else to do it." It roared. "As for the boy, he's just a pet project of mine. He is not human, but not an abomination either. I need to see how he behaved when given absolute power. Unlike you, I don't let unknown flowers grow in my garden. Also, I wanted to check if that dryad mumbo-jumbo about souls could actually fix him. Otherwise, he would have never accepted any help. He is too paranoid. This way, he believes to have earned it." The last part the Scorpicore kept to itself. It would have been too rude telling its minion that not even the Lord of the Forest believed about their so-called spiritual powers. Meanwhile, Lit was following the instruction contained in the vision, looking for a particular clearing in the forest, about 10 kilometers from the Academy's gate. As he closed in, his worries and anxieties faded away. "Are you all right?" Solus asked. "Not really. Do you know what was the most disturbing thing about that spell? It made me realize that I may have grown as a hunter and a mage, but as a person, I remained stale. I'm still scared of being hurt, that it takes me years to realize the good faith of someone. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that suddenly I believe that this world is full of wonderful people, only that I regret having lost so much. Think about my father Raz. I spent so much time treating him as a menace that when I started enjoying his company, it was too late. It's the same reason I never managed to have a healthy relationship back on Earth. To really connect with someone, you need to let yourself be vulnerable, to be sincere and open. But I always failed at that. I expected something to go wrong, for the other person to betray my trust, to the point of barely giving any. And here I am, doing the same thing over and over. I don't do favors, I cut deals. I don't ask for help. I just wait for people to be indebted to me, and then I collect it. The worst thing is that even if I wanted to change, I would not know where to start. That's because you are forgetting another of your flaws. You obsess with perfection instead of just trying to improve. If you really want to change, start with that. Take things a little at a time. Lit was now above the clearing, watching the same scene of the vision reply in front of his eye. 6 rough-looking individuals, probably hunters, had just cornered a young beak, a bear type of magical beast. Chapter 108. Struggling. I don't get it. How is this supposed to be related to my soul? Sure, hunting a pup is a shameful act, but I don't see why should I meddle. It's none of my business. Lit's side blurred, feeling his head spinning again, while images kept rapidly appearing and disappearing. He watched the white Griffon Academy's walls crack and crumble until the whole castle fell into ruin. What the heck? Another vision? He was flabbergasted. It must be guiding you towards something related to the power struggle revolving around the academy. Seems your soul is nicer than you, since it cares for Linjos and the kids. Solus' tone was gentle and warm, hoping for him to open his heart to others, even if just a little. I don't see how the two things are related. But in for a penny, in for a pound. What's the power level of the hunters? 3 cyan, 1 green, and 2 yellow manacores. The latter are unlikely to be mages, Too many muscles, too little mana soul, Solus replied. Lead memorized the opponents based on their strength before coming up with the last-minute plan. Not having much to work with, he had to keep it simple. Killing in cold blood 6 people just because of a mystical prophecy was out of the question. His conscience was still nagging at him for how he treated the Dryads, so he needed a softer approach. Lid instantly switched his hunter suit with academy uniform through the pocket dimension, having decided to play the role of a naive student upholding justice. He approached the hunters on foot while waving several spells, ready to be unleashed with but a thought, just in case. Once he got close enough, he snapped his fingers, using air magic to amplify the sound into a small boom, drawing their attention. "Hey, what are you doing so close to the academy? This part of the forest is reserved to the students. Scram before I call the security." The sudden noise caused them to freeze for a moment, giving the beak the opening it needed to escape the encirclement and run away. The 6 hunters turned towards Lid, looking at him with irritated eyes and ill-concealed killing intent. Raghul, the leader of the mercenary team disguised as hunters, was enjoying his last assignment quite a bit. He had never been paid so handsomely to do a menial job. During the last days, they had been killing magical beasts. It didn't matter if big or small, since the pay was the same. He had no idea why his contractor sent them specifically to that forest, but according to Rodimas, the smartest of the team, it was about upsetting the academy's balance. Based on the intel she had gathered, the headmaster had some kind of deal with the beasts. Her guess was that slaying those nearest to the academy and making the students appear as perpetrators, it would ruin the relationship between Linjos and the Lord of the Forest. If that happened, either he could no longer have the exams take place in the forest, or he had to risk his students' safety. Raghul didn't understood what good could come out of it, and more importantly, he didn't care. The reason he had accepted that job, despite the suspiciously high reward, was because he hated academies. The memories of what had gone through back in the day when he had been admitted to the water Griffon still haunted his dreams sometimes. When a goddamn kid appeared out of nowhere, allowing their prey to escape, he was greatly annoyed. What a rotten luck! How the heck this pest found us in this frigging huge forest? If we get exposed, we'll lose the other half of the pay. Hey, kid, do you have any idea how much money your little stunt has just cost us? At least 10 gold coins. Hope you have enough on you to compensate for our loss. Otherwise, I'll have to roughen you up. Raghul wasn't surprised that the first to react had been Tyrion. He was the kind of man that always thought with his wallet. Lid saw a lean man with curly brown hair and a face full of freckles walking double time towards him, yelling something about money. Don't you have any shame? First you gang up against a young beak and now trying to extort from a student? You are unworthy of calling yourself hunters. Lid pretended to be outraged while waiting for the next piece of the vision. Saving the cub had no effect, and so far, even interacting with the hunters had no effect. While the two quarreled, Raghul noticed that despite all the ruckus, no one was coming. Maybe there is a way to cut our losses. If this kid had come here alone and Rodimas is right about our mission, maybe by killing him we can keep our cover and even earn an extra. The orders are not to get caught in the act. Not to mention, it's best to avoid having the academy staff on our tail. Come on, Tyrion. Cut the kid some slack. He is right. We are too close to the academy. We are not looking for trouble. Tyrion recognized the code for murder, yet his poker face was impeccable. He didn't smirk, didn't pause what he was doing, not even for a second, managing to withhold his killing intent. He turned his back at Lit, nagging. Are you kidding me? I deserve my gold, so either I take it from you or from your share or nothing. Exploiting the moment Lit could not see him, Tyrion unsheathed one of the knives hidden under his hunter jacket before continuing to spin on himself, lunging it where Lit next in a single fluid movement. Even after his meeting with the Dryads and realizing that his third life had indeed been quite blessed, Lit was still more distrustful than a turkey the day before Thanksgiving. The knife only cut air, since its intended target had promptly backstepped, conjuring 4 icicles that pierced Tyrion's arms and legs, pining him to the ground like an insect. Lit had reacted on instinct, but now he seemed to be in a daze, uncertain on what to do next. He then pretended to be casting a fake magic spell, but the mercenary had already recovered from the shock, quickly adjusting their formation to encircle him. Reka, save Tyrion before it's too late. Beware, the Terp has magical rings, but don't let him run away. While screaming orders, Ragul thanked the god for their good luck. The kid seemed to be hesitant to kill humans, otherwise the situation would have been much worse. For the same reason, Solus was really worried. It was the first time since they had merged that Lit showed mercy on the battlefield. Even worse, his thoughts seemed to be in disarray, letting himself being cornered easily. The biggest of the group, almost 2 meters tall, with arms as thick as a head, charged forward like a boar, blocking the line of sight with his huge body mass. According to Solus, he was the other non-mage in the group, but if they kept him around, he was bound to have more than one trick up her sleeve. His clothes emitted a yellow glow, making his speed increase dramatically, followed by a red glow that seemingly had no effect. Lit easily dodged the charge, but he managed to stop abruptly, pivoting on his front leg to throw a bullet fast hook at Lit's temple. Lit was taken by surprise. The only thing he could do was jump backwards to weaken the strike and use his earth-infused right arm to block. "Got you," she said with a grin. From the voice, Lit understood that his enemy was actually a woman. On impact, her glove released a streak of lightning that coursed through his body, while the strength of the heat was enough to make him slide several meters backward right on the spear of her teammate that had positioned behind him. Everyone expected his arm to be broken and his body paralyzed, but Lit used full guard, emitting a spherical blue aura with a radius of 10 meters, dodging the spear with a spin without even looking back. Now that he was far enough from the burly woman, Lit could see that the man called Rika, probably the healer of the team, had drawn to Tyrion's sides, enveloping them both with a powerful air barrier to prevent any further attacks while treating his companion wound. "Got you," he said with a grin, snapping his fingers. A sudden flash drew the mercenary's attention to the fallen comrade. A fireball had detonated inside the barrier, but the air dome that was supposed to protect them prevented the flames from expanding, making those inside suffer from both the explosion and the recoil. The agonizing screams of the 2 mercenaries filled the air, and while their comrades were still trying to make sense of that sudden turn of events, Lid grabbed the spear-armed man from the back. His left arm formed a V, locking the opponent's throat between the forearm and the biceps, while the right hand grabbed his jaw with a quick whip-like movement, breaking the neck with a snapping sound. Chapter 109. Struggling Part 2. Why did you kill him? Solus asked in surprise. 6 against 1 is a little too much. Can't afford to miss any chance to even the score. Then, why did you let the other one leave before? A 2-stage attack, where the first is aimed to a random target and the second to his rescuers, is a classic guerrilla tactic. I didn't just pin him down. I also left a fireball ready in case someone tried to free him. Divide and conquer. Just like the icicles had missed Tyrion vitals, the fireball had been intentionally weak. Despite the boosted effect from the barrier, both Tyrion and Rekka were incapacitated but alive. They were badly burnt, but the remaining hunters could clearly see them writhing in pain. He did it on purpose, forcing his opponents to choose between abandoning their companions or fall twice for the same trick. They had no way to know if there was another fireball ready to explode. You scared the heck out of me back then. For a moment I thought you have gone soft. Solus hesitated before finishing the phrase. It seems nonsensical to push him to become more kind, just to worry whenever he wasn't ruthless. As I told you before, even if I decide to change, my opinion on people won't, especially on those who try to kill me without a reason. In the time necessary for their conversation to happen, the corpse of the spearman had yet to touch the ground. You! The burly woman took out 2 short swords from her dimensional amulet, dashing towards Lid, hell-bent on avenging her companions. In her hands the weapons moved nimbly as knives, cutting the air with a hissing sound. Both the fingers moved at high speed, taking each other by surprise. Is she even human? They both thought. While its speed came from air fusion, the mercenary was actually a normal woman, not even a mage. Among their many defensive properties, her clothes were also equipped with alchemic gems that could enhance her reflexes and strength without having to drink a potion. Despite being faster, Lid was having a hard time dodging the incoming attacks. Her arms were almost as long as his legs. And to make things worse, any weapon or shield he conjured lasted only a couple of hits before shattering. Seems she underestimates me no more. I have to come up with something fast. Watch out for her blades, they are enchanted, Solus pointed out. I doubt that your uniform can offer any kind of protection from them. Gritting his teeth at the news, Lid saw the mercenary sweep the ground with her leg, forcing him to jump. Her plan was to follow up with a roundhouse kick while the opponent was still in mid-air. Instead of falling down like she expected, Lid darted forward, kicking her face with both feet, forcing her to take a step back with a bloody nose. Exploiting that opening, Lid closed in, stomping his right leg on the ground with enough strength to crack it. The force of the kick was transmitted to the knee, and by bending the knee it was amplified and transmitted to the waist, the spine and the shoulder, releasing it through his right fist right in the sternum, making her slide back several meters with a cracking sound. Despite all her magical protections and superior physique, the punch, empowered by air, earth and fire fusion had broken several bones, making even breathing terribly painful. The remaining two members of the mercenary squad, Rodimas and Ragul, used that short exchange to position themselves behind him, locking Lid in a triangle formation. He didn't need to turn around to know that they were probably casting some spell to give their companion the second she needed to turn him into mincemeat. They had yet to notice that their fight had already ended. Lid struck again, this time at her chin, knocking her out before activating the tier 3 spell stored in his magic ring, Checkmate Spears. The air was suddenly filled with icicles as thick as a small tree, encircling the Rodimas from all directions, leaving her no way out. Inwardly swearing, Rodimas cancelled her spell, performing a last-second switch to save her life. The two found their position reversed. Now Lid was the one under the icicle's hail, but besides his wooden ride, he had nothing to fear. Checkmate Spear seemed an overly pompous name for a spell that had yet to actually checkmate someone even once. Being made out of his own magic, the icy darts passed through him like he was a ghost. In the meantime, Ragul completed his spell, a tier 5 battle mage one, the fastest one he knew. It generated several water spheres that would act as offense and defense at the same time. They were able to block or dampen air, fire, and earth magic spells, and if an enemy touched them, they would invade his lungs, drowning him. Ragul only kept a handful of them to protect himself, sending the remaining ones to Lid. Like true magic enhancements, they were able to chase their prey, as long as it remained in the line of sight of the caster. Usually, the only way out was running away or killing the caster. Being still at the 4th year, Lid had no idea what kind of spell it was. Not daring to underestimate the opponent, he did what seemed to be the most logical thing to do. He used his spirit magic to grab Rodimas and the burly woman, throwing them at the incoming spheres to see what would happen. Ragul couldn't believe his eyes. The kid was using his teammates as meat shields. He wasn't a newbie. He had already lost more than one ally during a job, sometimes sacrificing them to accomplish a mission. But that was too much. He had to choose between keeping his defense or killing two of his dearest friends for nothing. He could see the water forcibly entering through their noses and mouths. Rodima's panicked screams reduced to a handful of bubbles. Before he could decide what to do, Lid closed in enough to knock him out with a single punch. The water spheres burst open, freeing their prisoners. Lid had just knocked out Rodima's two to calmly decide what to do with them and how to get information that he wanted, when he noticed that the young pig had returned. "How kind of you, abandoning me like that after I saved your life," Lid said with a harsh tone. The pig snorted, rubbing its snout on his leg as a thank you. "Stop playing dumb. I know you can talk. I didn't come here by chance, but because some dryads told me about a fated encounter." The pig tilted his head sideways, finding hard to make sense out of those words. "So tell me, are you supposed to be my true love, my best friend, or what?" Chapter 110. Desperation. The pig chuckled, an amused light in its eyes. "May the Great Mother spare me from such terrible fates. No offense, but to be a decent mating partner, you are too thin, too small, hairless, and too human." Thanks to his recently found mana sensibility, Lit realized that the beak wasn't actually talking. It was just using air magic to turn the sounds of the forest in words for him to understand. None taken. To be honest, I am happy to hear that, as far as I know, I'm interested only in human females. Just thinking otherwise was creeping me out, he replied. What's a friend? The beak asked, sniggering. Excellent question, Lit sighed. In theory, is someone that cares for you as much as you do for them. Someone to rely on during tough times or when you are in trouble. Sounds like a mom or a pack leader. It was because it was young, or maybe just because it was an animal, but Lid had the impression the conversation was going nowhere. Do you know anything about the castle? Lid pointed at the academy spires, clearly visible above the tree line. The man-made mountain? Sure, everyone knows about it. It's the place where the white fur pups like you reside. Lit was about to facepalm himself in frustration, but then the beak asked him an odd question. Now that you mention it, can you explain to me why your den mates have gone insane? What are you talking about? Until last winter, the forest folks and the man-made mountain folks coexisted peacefully. Sure, from time to time a big fight happened, but that's the nature of wilderness. The strong lives, the weak dies. It shrugged. But now things are different. The white fur roam the forest not for food or herbs. They now hunt us actively, trying to kill us. And when I say us, I mean young magical beasts. That piece of news made no sense. According to what Celia told Lit in the past, a cub had no market value, either dead or alive. The pelt was too rough compared to an adult specimen, and no one had ever managed to tame one. Magical beasts were not just powerful, they were also strong-willed. If a cub was properly fed and cared for, it would soon become able to escape or at least die trying. If not, they would simply die out of starvation or from the abuse. Also, killing a cub was bound to incur the wrath of its parents. It was a high-risk, no-reward move. A vagrant hunter might not care, but for academy students it was suicidal to do so. They could meet the beasts again during an exam, or even worse, when alone, and that would mean either getting a failing grade for receiving a professor help or death. Luckily, most of them are stealthy as a storm, so only a few were killed. After we retaliated, the Lord of the Forest told us to stand down, to try settle things with the Lord of the Mountain. But the things got even worse. More and more strangers arrived, strong enough to kill adults. The beak pointed at the unconscious hunters with its note. Lit could understand how these events were related to the headmaster. It was a pincer maneuver to make the academy dangerous both inside and outside its walls. If a student were to die or disappear in the forest, especially during an exam, pinning the blame on Linjos would be a child's play. What he didn't understand was why such events were linked to his own soul. There was still something amiss. He could feel that the vision had yet to reveal itself. Lit's heart started to pound loudly in his chest. An irrational fear was pricking his mind like countless needles. Cold sweat covering his body. He had no idea what he was supposed to do or find. But he knew that the window of opportunity was about to close. The only card he had left to play were the hunters. It was still broad daylight and he couldn't afford to be discovered or interrupted. So he changed his clothes again and cast the harsh spell all around. Now, no matter what he did or how much they screamed, no one would hear them. And even if someone stumbled on him, all he would see was a hunter killing the competition. He woke them up with a jet of icy cold water. They discovered to have their hands and feet trapped inside the earth below them. That lid had turned to stone. Their mouths were stuffed with clay, preventing them to talk. Lid had searched them one by one, even in the mouth, taking every enchanted or alchemical item they possessed, leaving only their clothes. They were at his complete mercy. Even casting first magic would be incredibly difficult. He removed the gag from the burly woman. She was the one less likely to know something useful. So it was the perfect choice to set an example for the other two. "Free me and fight like a man if you dare." She spat on him. Her wet chestnut hair danced wildly while she struggled to break free, ignoring the pain from her fractures. Lid's reply was to strike right at the broken sternum, making her cough blood, the agony clouding her eyes with tears. "You lost fighting 3 versus 1 when you were at your peak condition. You being free or trapped would not change the outcome," he said, trying to hide the desperate need he had for information. "Tell me, who are you guys and what are you doing here?" She laughed in his face, showing a wolfish smile of defiance. "The little man is on a schedule, huh? Do your worst, kill me. I don't give a damn. I hope your master will give you a dog's death for your failure." Another chill invaded Lid's body, images of the excruciating cab ride, only to find Carl's dead body pushed him over the brink, stealing him enough to let the abyss that dwelled inside him roam free once again. You had just made your 2 last mistakes. First, I serve no master. Second, you have no idea what's my worst. I'm a healer. Those words were meant to be a threat, but she found it hilarious. "A healer? Then heal me so I can rip your head from your neck." Lid removed the glove on his right hand, placing it on her chiseled stomach, right above the solar plexus. "If you want to rape me, that's the wrong spot, kid. You see, a healer is bound to know the human body better than anyone else. We know how to deal the maximum pain while keeping our patient alive." After using invigoration on her, he located her manacore according to the alchemy professor. Sending mana into someone else's body was like injecting poison. Lid was now curious to see what would happen if he injected his mana directly into her manacore.